I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with you from my space or my reality. Of course, every person has a story. I'm absolutely thrilled and overjoyed to have Dr. Michael Button in the room with me. Also a very, very, very dear friend, one of the very few transparent, authentic people around on the planet. So, Mike, what a privilege again to have you together with me on this, or in the same room. It just does something for me. Thank you for that. So, as you heard, Al made discovery about me. I started off as a lecturer in the mining college, and then from lecturing moved into counseling psychology, because I was working with young students who were working in the mines and with explosives at the same time, and carrying bags of dynamite underground and then putting it in holes, and all under the influence of dacha. And so I started influencing them, and it was quite a wonderful time of finding young men discovering their purpose in life and their purpose in God. And then the principal asked me to move into counseling psychology, and from there I studied further and went into pastoral psychology, which was not an amazing experience for me. I was in the church world for just on 2 decades and a bit. One of the parts, I must confess, I never enjoyed much was the counseling, because what frustrated me the most was, and people start saying God that my mouth hangs open even when I think about it. So eventually I just said to the people, the moment God tells you to do something, the session stops. You must go and do what God tells you to do, no matter what it is. And I'm not going to counteract what God has told you in any way, but please remember, you're going to give God all the credit, but for me, you're going to pay cash as you go out the door. So that helped me to kind of align. I then went through a huge personal burnout in my life as a leader. Really messed up. I nearly lost my relationship with my wife and my family and with myself. I aimed for a 26-wheeler truck, missed it by millimeters, and the thrust of the force of the velocity of the truck, my car was spinning in circles under a bridge in a cloud of dust, and there I had my epiphany time, and heard a whisper on the inside of me where my God and my Creator said to me, I will walk with you. And then I had 4 requests, which were like 4 demands, and then which started off to be a year's sabbatical, ended up to be 3 years. I had the privilege of meeting a clinical psychologist who was a rabbi and also a neuroscientist, and he took me, shifted everything in my life, for which I'm extremely thankful. And he was the one who told me, you must go and study neuroscience. I said, what on earth for? I'm 46 years of age at that time. What must I go and study? And I've never stopped studying. The 2 PhDs, one's an honorary, one's an academic. Never stopped studying every year in my life, although I didn't enjoy school. And he said, you're going to discover the mystery and the glories of the universe, and you're going to discover the majesty and the magnificence of God the Creator. And hence I went and studied neuropsychology and neurophysiology, and I'm a cognitive neuroscience practitioner and also a master executive coach. I've got 36,000 678 one-on-one hours with business leaders, always working with a strategy. I come alongside a business and a life and ask this question that Jacob asked his son Joseph. Tell me about the dream that's in your heart. And then the CEOs and the excos tell me what their dreams are. It's usually a summit. And then I walk with them as a Sherpa guide to ensure their safety on their trip upwards. And I actually was coaching a CEO the other day who had returned from an Everest trip. He was one of the outliers. He never practiced, he never did exercises, anything. He just decided, I'm going to pack my bags and climb Mount Everest. And he was one of the, I think, 4 people who've ever accomplished that. And I said to him, so when you stood on the summit, please tell me what was it like? He said, first of all, it was extremely cold, difficult to breathe. And he says, I didn't realize that when I achieve some goals, I have difficulty in breathing when I get there. And then he said, I realized that when I was on top of the mountain, I was only halfway there because I had to climb down. So that really permeated within my mind in working with people, realizing that even although you achieve a goal, if it's a summit, you have to be guided down. So I've had the privilege of working with companies, seeing amazing things happen, and my ministry has changed. So I'm no longer in ministry as defined by man-made church or man-made design. I am a coach, and I'm spiritually alive, understanding the majesty and the glory of the neurology of which God has built within me as a human being. And that is now my mission. I'm sharing neuroscience for leaders and managers and salespeople and marketing, because we're not working so much with personality and sociology. As a neurologist, I always smile when people say, I've got a personality. I'm going, I'm glad you think you've got one. That's nice. But it's the actor in your world. So it's going to spam and sham you all your life, but it's also going to surprise you. So our topic for today is looking at your strategy and looking at it from a neuroscience perspective. So I do hope you can all see the flip chart. You will all be getting a copy of these slides, and I do hope that you can see that slide pretty clearly. I'm just going to move it out a little bit so you can see down on the bottom. So here we have in the beginning. So as a theologian, I'd say in the beginning, God created body, soul, and spirit, because that was the Greek model that I was taught in theology school and university. It was a model that was taught. So you've got a spirit, couldn't tell you where it is. You've got a body, but that is always bad, and it's the flesh, and you've got to crucify it every single day because it's bad and horrible, and its only use is for whatever. And then you've got a soul, which is a will and emotions and knowledge, and etc. But neuroscience knocked that ball right out the ballpark. So as a neuroscientist, when I look at Genesis 1 and 2, I'm going to say the following. In the beginning, God created a neuro, psycho, socio, ego, soul feel alive, living biology. The neurology is the DOS program in the hard drive, which is the brain. And the neurology goes not only in my body, but beyond my body. So I've got consciousness, I've got magnetic energy that right now we can measure it with cameras. So it's always strange how Christians, everything that sounds scientific to them is now new age, and that's so sad. They're declaring themselves foolish, ignorant people because they don't want to think. So we can actually take a photograph of it and prove to you that there is magnetic energy that's all around you that creates collective consciousness when we're in a room and connecting with people. Even now, we are connecting across the airwaves with collective consciousness. So the personality, so the DOS program is the neurology. Our personality, our socio, our ego are like the apps that are on the DOS program, like Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. So that's the personality side of it. And personality changes and swaps and adapts. So the Bill Price that you see now, quite confident in what he's saying, centered in how he's saying it, is totally different when Estelle, to whom I married for over 50 years, very interesting years, chases me down the passage with a pan, and I'm diving under the bed, and she says, "Come out from under the bed." There's a different Bill Price there who lies under the bed saying, "Don't worry, honey, I'll come out, just you go and calm down and have a drink, and I'll slowly exit and come back to you." So the moment you change the context, personality adapts. So it's not that reliable. So when you go for profiling, and I design profiling as a psychometrist, I can tell you that they are not very reliable. Sometimes you stand on a scale and the questionnaire that you've just answered is not measuring your weight, but it's measuring your height. So be very careful with psychological profiles. It's simply like you're taking an instrument, walking on the beach, and you want to pick up sounds of things, metal. It could be a piece of gold, it could be a tin, or it could be a human tank. But until you dig, you're not going to make any discoveries. When God breathed into us, and there are 2 occasions that God's breath is spoken of in the book of Genesis, he breathed into our neurology that made us different to an animal. So in our neurology, we have intentionality. In our neurology, we have interconnection and communion. So it was the only time where God made a mistake, and he admitted it himself when he molded man, and he said, "Oops, I'm sorry, it is not good." The rest of the time he said, "It's good, it's good, it's good." One occasion he says, "It's not good." And what wasn't good? He formed man, or molded man. He created the world with words, but man and woman he formed. It took his time. And he said, "It's not good that I have put connectivity or interconnectivity into this person's neurology, in the energy in their body, so that they could have connection with only me. It's not good." He says, "I need to create a helpmeet for this person, because he needs to relate to someone else besides me." That's why we have the commandment, love God, love yourself, love others. That's the Hebrew interpretation. It's not love God, love others, then yourself. It's with the same love and energy that you love God, you will love yourself, and from that area you can only love others. I cannot give anybody in my world anything that I do not have in my own being. Forget it. So we've got interconnection built into now our neurology. We've got intelligence that makes us different to the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom have got survival instincts. They're not intelligent. People will call it intelligence, but it's a sub kind of intelligence other than ours. Consciousness with breathed into us. And the first message that Jesus preached was awake. And the Hebrew word for awake there is to become conscious, to become aware. Just become aware the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So Jesus or Yeshua was speaking about becoming consciously aware as part of our salvation. Then we are intuitive. So in other words, we can pick up things. The spiritual gift of prophecy, or the spiritual gift of discernment, is built within our neurology, within the ability to be intuitive. We have influence, and then God also breathed into us our purpose, which we find in the book of Proverbs, train up a child in the way in which they will go, and when they're old, they'll not depart from it. The Hebrew word, the way, is the Hebrew word gibar, and that doesn't disappear after teenage. it stays within you. And the word gibar means your life reason. So we're already inbuilt, inbreathed by God, and we are soulfully alive. And within our neurology, there is more than just neurology. So let's go and have a look. Personality is a complexity of all the thoughts we've had, all the feelings we've had, all the actions and the consequences, and how we filed that in a filing system, and that becomes personality. Ego is our self-importance, and socio is the impact of our social upbringing and our caregivers and everybody else that had an added value. So we read in the Old Testament, God breathed ruach, which is wind, not his Holy Spirit. It's wind, it's air, and breath. And that's what he breathed on the chaos. And the word ruach means intelligence, systems, order, and interconnectivity. As a coach, when I walk into a business, the first thing I want to do is bring ruach into the business and go, tell me about your systems. Are they intelligent? Are they giving you data that you can turn into information that you can turn into intelligence? So your CRM system, is it working intelligently for you? If it's not, then it's stupid AI, and you've got to change that order. So all of this ruach was spoken into the universe, spoken into summer, winter, autumn, spring. That's why trees know when their leaves need to drop, know when blossoms need to form, the angle of the earth, the rotation speed, the position of every star in the millions and millions and millions of galaxies that we have. All of that was breathed into before God could speak and say, let there be light. And it's interesting that only on a few days afterwards does he create the stars and the sun. So my question is, where does the light come from before the stars and the sun? But anyway, he creates in us, he breathes ruach into our body, and into our body we've got, in our hardware, in our brain, we've got 11 brain intelligences, one of which is spirituality, our spiritual intelligence. And our spirit being is within our neurology. So there's no one place where where's my spirit? A lot of people say it's in your gut or whatever. It only feels there because energy moves the moment you experience spirituality. We've got 7 levels of thinking. We've got 8 brain languages with which the brain interprets reality and stores it. We've got 8 logical levels, and they sound like mindsets, belief systems, values, self-identity, my essence, which is the DNA of my identity. My identity is nouns. I'm a male. I'm a CEO. I'm an executive coach. Those are all nouns. But that God doesn't know me by my nouns. He knows me by my name, and he knows me by my essence. And essence is I am love. I've got the fruit of the Holy Spirit on the inside of me. So there's love, patience, kindness, joy, peace, abundance, worthiness, acceptance. That's my essence of my identity. I'm not a noun. And so to God, I'm more than that. The brain has got 24 filters, and they sound like big picture process, detailed, towards, away from, 20 cognitive biases, and then the body has 11 systems. And I heard one of the ladies talking about the work that she does. And our first command is that we must look after our body. It's the temple, and we've got to be looking after these 11 systems, your cardiovascular system, your lung system, your renal system, your sexual reproductive system, your our brain intelligences, all the other systems that we have, our nervous system, and the systems that fought COVID all the way through, which was a debate that really went across the world. Then in our brain, Ruach brought brain waves, and there are various brain waves that you can measure and you can read. When charismatic Christians speak in tongues, they go in a trance-like state. So when you measure the EEG, it's like the brain goes into a trance, and it's like you're going into another dimension. And so neurology and science can measure where spirituality is happening and how it happens. The different kinds of energy that's in our body is nuclear energy, because we've got 100 million neurons in our brain, and then we've got 78 trillion. So if a neuron is my hand, and then we've got these little synapses or tubes that go round and they interconnect. We've got 78 trillion connections in our brain. The speed of the energy that's going in our brain is between 180 and 240 kilometers an hour. So you can work that out in miles per hour. We've got food state energy. So the food that you eat, the kind of food, you need to stay away from sugar, you need to stay away from milk, you need to stay away from gas cold drinks, because that doesn't create, it creates an energy, but it creates damage with that energy. We've got electro energy that we can measure with EEGs. We've got magnetic energy that we can measure within the heart, and that measures up to 6 meters. And Harvard and Stanford University have measured magnetic energy up to about 7 kilometers away from a person while they're watching movies, and they can tell you what's happening there. Then we've got physical energy or kinesthetic energy that we need to do with exercise. And then we've got thinking and emotive energy. The other thing that God breathed into our lives was nefesh chaya. It was the second. And that was when he breathed into the mouth of Adam and did mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, as one of the prophets in the Old Testament did on a child that was dead. He breathed breath into that. Jesus breathed over his disciples. And nefesh chaya means the very life of God himself. In the chapter in John, I've come that you might have life and have more abundantly. It's the Hebrew word nefesh chaya is equal to the abundant life word. It's coming to me now. And it's the very life of God himself. The other thing that God has breathed into us, when he spoke into Adam and Eve, he spoke it into their neurology. So it's not something like a plaster that's plastered on our life. It is in our neurology. He said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish, govern, and subdue. And when you look at the Hebrew translation, the rabbi taught me that the word fruitful doesn't only mean make babies, it means to be productive. And Jesus said, you will always have the poor with you, and he calls them unproductive. Multiply is the story of the 1, 2, and 5 talent. What makes them the same and levels the playing ground for them is that they could multiply the talent that they had. So 1 could be 2, 2 could be 4, 5 could be 10. So within you as a Christian businessman and woman, I'm asking the question, what plan and strategy do you have to multiply everything in your life? Because it's already built into your neurology, and we're going to give account of that. Replenish is the Hebrew word scale, which means franchise. Jesus used that in Luke, when he sent his disciples 2 by 2 into the different villages and said to them, you go, I can't go there, but you must represent me. You must go. And he wasn't omnipresent, but he allowed his disciples to take his presence with them, and that's called replenish. It's taking who you are to the world that you're going. The word govern doesn't mean that we are there like a king and a queen and a priest, as we sometimes ask, but the word there for Hebrew is you orchestrate. So you're orchestra conductor, you're orchestrating everything in your life. And then subdue doesn't mean like it's like I have authority, I've got the keys of the kingdom and I'm going to take authority and all of that. I'm glad you think that way, but subdue is the Hebrew word self-control. And Proverbs, there's a scripture, God says very clearly, I honor a man and a woman more that controls their spirit than he who takes a city. So we as Christians must stop bragging about what we do and what we don't do and the magnificent things that we're doing, not saying that we mustn't. And if you want God's respect, control yourself. Use the fruit of the Holy Spirit, which is on the inside, and that's called self-control. So when I understand this, that this is what is in my life and this is who I am, and God has given me the keys to this, which is called my kingdom, I then have been given by God a dream. Everybody has a dream. It's called your purpose. So the dream is always in the future and in the present tense. So the present tense is where I am now. The future tense is where I want to be, and it's always I want to be better, and I always want success. God spoke to Joshua and said, I want to give you good success. I don't just want you to give ordinary success. The same word that he used in Genesis when he created every day, he said, it is good, it is good, it is good. It means exceptional. And then when he created woman, he said, it is very good. So that's like super exceptional. So on God's rating scale, gentlemen, we're good, but a woman is like, yoo-hoo, very good. Now, this dream is always determined by what I want and what I need, but it comes from the internal part of my being called a yearning. And because we don't know how to interpret a yearning in my essence, in my being, we turn it into, we think it's a car I must have, or a house, or the prosperity movement that says you can name it, claim it, and grab it and have it, and all that silliness. That's got nothing to do with it. It is better in terms of quality. It's better, and I don't lose myself, and I don't lose my life, and I don't lose my relationships for success. Then you need to know it's not the right kind of success. The question, whenever you look at, so if I had to ask you, what's the success definition of your life and your business? The brain doesn't know what to do with it. You're going, success is, I've got this and that. The brain only engages when you ask one question twice. What will success mean to me? And I'd like you to take a moment and just answer that. Success in my life, with my business, holistically, what will that mean to me? So success will be, I've achieved, I've obeyed, I've connected with the purpose of God in my life. So that's the first level. Then you ask a second question using the answer as the prompter. So if I've said success is that I am honoring God, I'm living for God, I am purposeful, etc., then I'm going, so what is honoring God? What is purposeful? And what does achievement mean to me? And that answer is my deepest level of personal motivation found in my neurology and in my emotional life. We're always moving from where I am now, and the three things that bother us over here is, what am I tolerating? So you can use this as a wonderful strategic prompt in your life to ask the question, where am I now? And ask this question, what am I tolerating in my life? What am I tolerating in my business? If I can change my tolerations, those are the easy routes to go. My frustrations, to change them, I have to undergo characterological growth. I've got to change my character. Because my frustrations are the things that I now need to talk to people and talk to myself. And then the challenges are all the external stuff in my reality in our VUCA world. In this arrow, you can put in here as admin and HR and customer service, etc., etc. But my arrow for my business always has 2 points to the arrow, sales and marketing. You're going nowhere in the world if you don't sell and if you don't market. You have to be relentless with that. The day you stop selling, the day you stop marketing is the day that your business stops right there. The heartbeat goes boom, 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 stop. And it's your job to make sure that you're paying attention to keeping all of these things aligned because something else is happening. So risk is always taking place. So here's my main trajectory that's taking me there. Risk happens, and it's the stuff that I usually don't pay attention to. My timeline in my vision is there, and I'm going, so risk happens, and it pushes and deflects my trajectory by 1 degree. So 1 degree, my trajectory ends up, if I don't pay attention to it over this month, this month, this month, this month, in other words, I don't tend to it, I don't look after it, I'll go there, and that there is a distance usually of 17 kilometers. So I get in my rocket and I plan it and I program it and going, this is God's purpose for my life. But risk and stuff happens, or shifts happen. I have to say that word slowly. Shifts happen. And then there's a 1 degree movement. And that's why I need to be awake and alert and alive all the time. I cannot allow myself to be sleeping on the job. I've got to be alert. I've got to be conscious of what's going on in my life. Because if I'm not conscious, then I'm unconscious. And if you want to know what unconscious looks like, let me show you. So your brain is like this. So this is unconsciousness. It's like a lion who's looking at a herd of zebra that are running across the field. He can't make a decision, or she can't make a decision, usually the lioness. She can't make a decision which is the head or the tail. And so it just lies there looking in magnificence at the way in which God has created camouflage called stripes on a zebra. And that's what a busy brain looks like. Knows everything, wakes up in the morning like this, and you've got to make sense of that. That's why I've got to step back and watch the herd go by, but then watch the opportunities that I now need to be paying attention to. So the lioness steps back and says, oh, okay, so there's 2 zebra. This one is going to be lunch. So I wake myself up consciously, physically, every morning, because if I don't wake my brain up, my brain is in automatic mode. This is general pilot. I know everything. I'm spiritual. I know I love God. I know I'm worshiping God. I know that I've got a purpose. I know, but that's the definition. That's why we've got to step back. That's why Jesus, on one occasion, said, if anybody wants to build a house or a dream, if you want to build one of these things, you've got to get back, make time. You cannot strategize on the run, and you cannot strategize in a course. You get out of it. You sit down, you put your buns in a chair, and there you take the dream. And then he says, you think thoroughly, strategize thoroughly. You take all the factors involved. Who's the team that's going with me? What's the product that's going with me? Where does my life want to end up? Who am I here? Who's the identity here in 3 years' time? So if I want to be a millionaire or a billionaire, I cannot afford to think like the person that's here at the am now. This person here will mess up everything that's there. So you don't think in terms of goals, only in terms of achievement. You've got to think in terms of self-development. The Joseph who came out of the prison became totally different when he became the project manager of an ungodly man called Pharaoh, and he served him as if he served God. And Joseph grew. He had to take water and divert it into the desert. He had to learn how to find agriculture, to grow stuff, to put them in the barns. He had to orchestrate with people. He did all that. He didn't learn that in university, but he did learn it when he was in Potiphar's house and he was a slave and a manager of the slaves. So your dream and your purpose find you on the way as you're traveling toward it. But your identity changes up here, absolutely. And if it doesn't change along the way here, you'll never reach there. You'll deflect, you'll go somewhere else, and you'll get a second-hand version of your strategy and your life. So let's pause for a moment. I'd like you to take 4 deep breaths with me. So sit back in your chair, and I want you to breathe in for a count of 4. Breathe in. Hold it. And breathe out. Again, breathe in for 4. Hold it. Breathe out. Breathe in for 4. Hold it. Breathe out. Roll your shoulders back. Put your hands on your shoulders, and we're going to do 5 of these. You're going to breathe in as your hand goes up and breathe out as your hand comes down. And we're going to do that 5 times. So let's do it. So breathe in with the nose deeply, out through the mouth. And relax. Take a deep breath until it becomes normal. Welcome to the now moment. You've now moved from present thinking into the now. The only time we are aware of the now is I'd like you to breathe in through your nostrils and be aware of the air that's going through the nostrils. Would you do that? Just breathe in slowly, but be aware of the air that's going in the nostril. Now you're in the now. And now is a very important. Rabbi Paul wrote to Corinthians and he said, now is the time of salvation. So there's a point in time that is more than the present. It's far more specific than the present. So if I'm going to study my strategy to find out where I am and how I'm going, I need to get into the now. So when I work with CEOs and companies and people in life coaching, here is my life picture. So my life vision for the next 15 years is this. In here, I've got everything. I've got my vision, my values. I've got all the companies that are still going to be developed, neuroscience for Africa, education projects, all the things that I'm wanting to finish in the next 15 years of my life. It's called my 15-mile march picture. And from here, I turn everything into my diary for a year. Over a period of 15 years, I know the stuff that's in here that'll take 5 years. I know the stuff that's in here that is going to take 2 years or a year, but that's the reality of my picture. And Habakkuk says, people who don't have a picture, they flounder. They go back into this mode. That's the word perish. You flounder because you don't have a vision. And the Hebrew says, write it down. Interestingly, the Hebrew word there is draw it, because every Hebrew letter has got a number, has got a symbol, and is a letter within itself. So you need to write it down. You need to draw it. The interesting thing that when we begin to work with strategy, something that's already built within our neurology that God has put in there, there's away from. Now, away from is built within our neurology so that we can do what Jesus said to the woman who was caught in adultery. And he said to her, when he forgiven her and set her free, and he said, now don't continue doing what you've done. Learn from this lesson. He doesn't say, go on a course, get deliverance, get 6 steps. Jesus is enough. Any church and religion that makes Jesus plus, you need to know you need to walk away from that, because Jesus is the only solution and you don't need anything else other than Jesus. When he said it's finished, he meant it, and he dealt with everything. So all these new fantasy stuff, I've walked away from that, and it's been wonderful. My life is much lighter. So God has built in an ability to walk away from things that are wrong. But the way that our personality has formed us is, this is where we procrastinate. This is where we become negative. This is the way it's called the amygdala in the brain. And we go into, the moment we sense there's loss, there's fear, there's anxiety, the ability of self is challenged, I can't do it, I won't be able to do it, etc., then the away from. And what we're going to manage in our teams, in our business, is where those that are away from, because I can't just introduce something new to people. The brain doesn't like change, and the neurology doesn't like change. But I've got to work with the neurology of toward. Now, Jesus woke up every day, who for the joy that was set before him, what was that? He saw the ecclesia. Nowhere in the New Testament is the word local church used. Ecclesia is the word that is used. And because of the many people of kindred, nation, and tongue sitting before God, worshiping, that was the joy that was set before him. So your vision up here must pull you. So here's my question to you as a business person. What's pulling you in your vision? Because from here, you have to become a driver. And the worst book that was ever written in Christianity was The Purpose-Driven Life. Jesus, a Jew, was never driven. You're not supposed to be driven. You're supposed to be drawn and guided and magnetized and led by the inner magnetic field that is in my neurology, which is called the spirit, to God's spiritual ending for my life. And that's always toward. And this is the hippocampus part of my brain that whenever there's achievement, when there's goals, when there's clarity, when there's focus, when there's a sense of meaning, then I can get towards, and towards switches on. Two other things I need to bring in my strategy, and that is, so what's important about my business and what does that mean? If you don't wake up every morning going, my life picture is important to me, the stuff in my life picture is important to me, the stuff that I haven't drawn in there, I'm never going to bother about, because that's it, it's settled. So in paying attention to working with my neurology, now I work with my strategy and there's always uncertainty, but we need to build in clarity. So here's a couple of questions I'm going to just quickly run through. You'll be getting a copy of this. So here's some questions. How and where do I need to improve? And please don't try and do it every day. I've got a Christian CEO who's constantly asking God questions every day. What do you want me to do today? I'm going, why don't you change the question to, God, could you please tell me what do you want me to do by the end of this quarter? Why make it every day? Because if you keep on writing every single day, it's like you're getting new news and then you're going to go all over the place. Clarity and focus is power to your neurology. So stop floundering your life by asking too many questions every single day. You don't need to have every single question asked every single day. What do I need to do more of, less of, stop and start in my strategy? What are the rhythms and momentum of my strategy? So the rhythms are daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. And what's the momentum? What's the speed? Joseph knew that he had 7 years to get the stage set, and 7 years in which to grow parallel at the same time, stuff that must go into the barns. So strategy is parallel. What's holding me back? That's usually your tolerations, frustrations, and your challenges. My value beliefs, are they woven into my strategy? Do I counsel? Do I get peer review? And by this, I do not mean prophecy. I mean, do you get counsel of wisdom and peer review, which sometimes I believe is a little bit more important than prophetic words, because sometimes prophecy takes us all over the place. And anyway, then awareness and mindfulness. I've got to be constantly aware, and I've got to be mindful of where I am. So I meditate in front of my picture every single week. I put it before me and I meditate, and I just get quiet. I don't ask God questions when I meditate. Then I've got to ask questions in my strategy, what I've got to learn, adapt, and what I've got to unlearn. And then am I listening to my customers? Because your customers are your future. And if you're not listening to your customers and making discoveries about your customers, then it's just not going to work. So here's what you need to do on a daily basis. If you've got a to-do list, get rid of it. and start an achievement list. Because remember, we're moving from away to award. And remember, we're saying what's important to me and what does it mean? Here is the joy that is set before me. It must draw me towards my vision. Something in my vision must draw me. It can scare me, but it must also draw me. It must have a great magnitude. So I created to do and to achieve list, and that's divided up into who and results and mindset. So who do I need to meet today? What are the 3 results that I want from this meeting? I write them down. And then mindsets, what are the 3 mindsets that I need to apply? Because now I'm bringing consciousness into my day. So when I meditated this morning about meeting you, I said, these are people I don't know, but I know they love God and I know they have a passion for mission and purpose in their life. What are the results that I want? So I want to be able to share neurological facts. I want to share about the beauty and the magnificence of how my neurology works different to personality. And the result must be, I want to awaken in you an excitement and entice you to possibly rethink your life. My mindset is abundance. My mindset is energy and passion. And my mindset is clarity and non-judgment. So I hope you can sense and feel that. Because the moment I put mindsets, I put energy into all of things. So even a phone call must have a result and a mindset. Even a meeting, what on earth are you wanting as a result of the meeting? Not just an agenda. Then the what is the stuff that I need to do. I need to determine for each one of those what's, what are the 3 things and what are the 3 mindsets I'm going to apply to that. It's the mind of Christ that I'm now applying into my life, in my neurology, into my reality. The projects that I have on the life picture that you saw, one of them is Neuroscience Global Africa Education. That one is going to take 5 to 6 years, but I keep it here to ask, what must I put on this list that I need to possibly pay attention about this project? So all my projects, A, B, C, D, and E are projects. Some of them are years, some of them are 2 years. The stuff that's on my picture, I put on a daily planning sheet, and I just put them there to say, I've got you. I don't want my brain ever to feel, oops, you're not thinking of it, because then it goes into amygdala state, it goes into the negative state, and I get driven and I get pushed. But I want to be in the peace of God all the time. I want to be in the mind state of Christ, and who is very much aware of their reality and very much aware of who he is. So I do hope that what I'm been sharing has added value to you in some way, and so we can open up for questions.